Previously, we had talked about the Shura system, pointed to Imam Ali's own understanding of how a caliph is supposed to be chosen. So this is letter number 6 in Nahjul Balaagha, which itself is quoting from earlier sources. Here, Imam Ali alayhi salam, writing to Muawiya, he mentions the correct procedure for choosing a head of state after the Prophet. He says, وَإِنَّمَا الشُّورَى لِلْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. Mutual consultation among the believers, Shura, is supposed to happen between the Muhajirin and Ansar. He singles out the Muhajirin and Ansar because they represent the will of the Muslims, and because it was the prophetic sunnah. Allah commanded him, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying that the same system should be followed. فَإِنِ اجْتَمَعُوا عَلَى رَجُلٍ وَسَمَّوْهُ إِمَامًا. So if they unanimously agree on one man, they name him the Imam. كَانَ ذَلِكَ لِلَّهِ رِضًا. Then this is pleasing to Allah, meaning Allah is pleased with whichever candidate the Muhajirin and Ansar agree upon. So this is in Nahjul Balaagha, and there is evidence for this scattered across the Islamic sources. This text in itself alone is not sufficient to establish this, but this Shura narrative, there is so much evidence for it that you will be convinced that this is indeed what was the system back then. But now sectarian elements try to rewrite history and make it look like, no, Imam Hassan must have believed himself to be a divine appointee, or Imam Ali must have appointed him.
الإمام الحسن عليه السلام توفي النبي صلى الله عليه وآله عمره 7 سنوات. كان في عدد من الصحابة في ذلك الزمان. الإمام الحسن ما قال سوي شورى. بعد وفاة الإمام علي عليه السلام الإمام حسن عليه السلام ما فتح مجال شورى ولا أي شيء، مباشرة تصدى للأمور. شنو هذا مو ادعاء إمامة.
So a claim is made that Imam al-Hasan did not hold any shura. This is clearly an attempt to rewrite history or to actually delete chunks of history. So we're going to quote Tarikh al-Tabari here, an early book of Islamic history. The good thing about this Tarikh and this history is that Tabari includes the reports of very early Shia transmitters. وذكر أن جندب بن عبد الله. It is mentioned that Jundab bin Abdullah entered into the presence of Imam Ali after he was struck fatally. So he asked him, O commander of the believers, if we lose you, and may we not lose you, should we pledge allegiance to al-Hasan? You'd expect that if members of Ahlul Bayt believed in some kind of divine appointment or prophetic designation, something like this existed, this is the place where it would manifest. Imam Ali would quote some verse of the Quran, or he would quote some hadith which has appointment of Imam al-Hasan, or if there was nothing in Quran and Hadith, he would just say, I am issuing a nas, I am hereby officially instructing you people that the leader after me is al-Hasan. But the interesting thing is, Imam Ali is perfectly consistent with what he stated in the letter to Muawiya. When Jundab ibn Abdullah asks this question, should we give bay'ah to al-Hasan? Imam Ali alayhi salam responds, he says, Ma amurukum wala anhaakum antum absar. I neither command you to do so, I neither command you to give bay'ah to al-Hasan, nor do I stop you. This is completely up to you. For those of you who don't understand Arabic, the history of al-Tabari has been translated into English. You will find it in volume 17, page 218. So this report is very clear in indicating that there was no divine appointment. Otherwise, Imam Ali would obviously remind the people of it. Allah and the Messenger have already sealed the deal on this matter. At least he could have said that I am sealing the deal on this matter. This would obviously be more in line with monarchy, a dictatorial autocratic system. The works of history that were authored by Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Madaini. So al-Madaini, his works are lost, but Ibn Abil Hadid al-Madaini preserve a lot of his accounts in his commentary of Nahjul Balaagha, Sharh Nahjul Balaagha. وَلَمَّا تُوفِّيَ عَلِيٌّ خَرَجَ عُبَيْدُ اللَّهِ ibn al-Abbas. They have put it as Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. It's supposed to be Ubaydillah ibn al-Abbas, that after Amir al-Mu'mineen passed away, Ubaydillah ibn al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib came out and he addressed the people. He said to them, the commander of the faithful has passed away, but he has left behind a son. فَإِنْ أَحْبَبْتُمْ خَرَجَ إِلَيْكُمْ. So if you like it, this son of Imam Ali can come out, put himself up as a candidate for the Khilafah. وَإِن كَرِهْتُمْ. But if you dislike this, then no one has authority over another person. The choice is yours. فَبَكَى النَّاسِ. So the people cried because they're still grieving over Imam Ali. وَقَالُوا بَلْ يَخْرُجْ إِلَيْنَا. They said, no, he should come out to us. فَخَرَجَ الْحَسَنَ. Al-Hasan came out and then he gave a speech in which he said, أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ. O you people, اتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, fear Allah, and understand that we are your leaders and we are your guardians and we are from the household for which Allah said in the Quran that verily Allah desires to remove filth from you, O members of the household, and He desires to purify you with a complete purification. So Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam delivered this speech, فَبَايَعَهُ النَّاسِ. So then the people stepped forward and they gave him bay'ah. So you can see how the system worked. It's not that Imam al-Hasan straight away assumed the caliphate. No. A member of the Banu Hashim addressed the people. He said, Imam Ali alayhi salam has gone back to his creator. If you want, in ahbabtum, if you like and love this, that al-Hasan should come out and address you, then well and good. But if you don't want to see him and you don't want to give him the chance, then that is also fine. That's your choice and it will be respected. So this is basically the Shura. This is how a Shura happens. And they said, no, bal yakhruj ilayna. They knew his status. They know he is the eldest grandson of the Prophet. And Imam al-Hasan reminds them of his merits. The fact that he's among those people who are mentioned by Allah in the Quran and for whom Allah desires to keep away from filth and to purify them with a complete purification. And obviously this cannot be some kind of Sunni or Nasibi fabrication. What kind of Sunni would try to make Imam al-Hasan say words like, we are your leaders and guardians and the Ahlul Bayt for whom this verse was revealed? This report is about a letter that is written by Abdullah ibn al-Abbas to Imam al-Hasan. He says, Amma ba'd. He begins the letter by saying that it is indeed the Muslims who appointed you as their caliph. It's the Muslims, wallawka amrahum. Doesn't say that it is Allah who appointed you or it is the Prophet who decreed there are supposed to be 12 caliphs after him and you are the second of those 12 caliphs. Ibn Abbas is not aware of any such theory. فَشَمِّرْ لِلْحَرْبِ. So prepare for war. وَجَاهِدْ عَدُوَّكَ. And do jihad against your enemy. Now, sometimes the typical sectarian Shia response when we look at reports like this is to say, well, how do we know this letter is not doctored? Maybe this letter and all this evidence, maybe this is all fabricated by the Sunnis. The Sunni sectarian people wanted to prove that there is no divine imam, so they fabricated this kind of evidence. Interestingly, this letter of Ibn al-Abbas itself contains clear evidence that this letter cannot be a Sunni fabrication. Because look at what Ibn Abbas says later on in the letter. This is signature Ibn Abbas. He says, addressing Imam al-Hasan, and obviously the biggest challenge in front of Imam al-Hasan is Muawiya. So look at what he says about Muawiya. وَعْلَمْ أَنَّكَ تُحَارِبُ مَنْ حَارَبَ اللَّهِ. He says, no, that you are fighting a man, Muawiya, who fought against Allah and the Messenger in the beginning of Islam until the decree of Allah became manifest and apparent. Then when it became impossible to fight against Allah and the Messenger, when religion became strong and these people realized that it was no longer possible to oppose it, then Muawiya and those with him, أظهروا الإيمان. They outwardly manifested Iman. Yani they professed faith and they claimed that they had become Muslims. وقرأوا القرآن. And they recited the Quran. مستهزئين بآياته. They made mockery and ridiculed its verses. وقاموا إلى الصلاة وهم كسالى. And they stood to prayer but in a lazy state. How Allah describes about the munafiqeen, the hypocrites. Ibn Abbas is using divine descriptions of the hypocrites. He's applying it on Muawiya. Which Sunni would ever make Ibn Abbas do this? Impossible. So this can only be the real and genuine Ibn Abbas. فَلَمَّا رَأَوْا أَنَّهُ لَا يَعِزُّ فِي الدِّينِ إِلَّا الْأَتْقِيَاءُ الْأَبْرَارُ. And then when they began to see, when they observed that no one can become powerful under the new system that Islam has introduced except those who are pious and righteous. When these people realized this, Ibn Abbas says, تَوَسَّمُوا بِسِيمَاءِ الصَّالِحِينَ. Muawiya and the circle of people who embraced Islam together with him, they started to pretend to adopt the guise of the righteous. لِيَظُنَّ الْمُسْلِمُونَ بِهِمْ خَيْرًا. So that the Muslims may think well of them. And he goes on and on. But this crucial evidence, this goes to show you that this letter is genuine. Because when Sunnis see this part of the letter, they might try to discredit it by saying, well, this kind of anti-Muawiya sentiment, this is not in keeping with the Sunni narrative about Muawiya. Sunni narrative is based on adalatul Sahaba, the idea that no, all Sahaba, you cannot attribute evil intentions to them. Everything that they do, you have to نَحْمِلُهُ أَحْسَنَ الْمَحَامِلِ, interpret it in the most favorable light possible. You should never even dream that, Sahaba ever had any evil intention about Muawiya. This letter, it cannot be a sectarian Imami Shia fabrication because obviously at the very beginning it's talking about Shura, which the later sectarian Imamis did not believe in. And at the end of the letter, it is talking about Muawiya in such pejorative terms that no Sunni will be able to digest it because he really exposes the reality of Muawiya here. See, this is how, if you are analytical and if you approach these sources with a critical lens, we'll be able to tell even without examining the sanad. The sanad ultimately is not the the hujjah in such matters. You have to look at what is being transmitted. Does it agree with any sectarian narrative? In this case, we have demonstrated how it dates back to a time when the Shia of Ali alayhi salam were a political party and not a sect. After Imam Hassan alayhi salam came to power, it's impossible that he would remain silent. He would give speeches, write letters, and it is in this activity that you will discover crucial evidence. The evidence for divine appointment, you will find it locked only in sectarian, compromised Imami hadith sources. So far we showed you the report that talks about the Shura that happened. After that we showed you Ibn Abbas's letter. Now let us show you the letter of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam himself. وَكَتَبَ الْحَسَنُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ إِلَى مُعَوِيَةَ. Imam Hassan alayhi salam wrote this letter to Muawiya. Indeed, Allah raised Muhammad as mercy for all humankind. فَأَظْهَرَ بِهِ الْحَقِّ. So through him, he brought out the truth. Imam Hassan talks about an actual divine appointee. He's very clear in mentioning Allah. But then, addressing Muawiya, he says, إِنَّ عَلِيًّا لَمَّا تَوَفَّاهُ اللَّهُ وَلَّانِيَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ الْأَمْرَ بَعْدَهُ. He says, indeed, Ali, after he passed away, وَلَّانِيَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ الْأَمْرَ بَعْدَهُ. The Muslims appointed me to the caliphate after him. So notice, when it comes to Prophet Muhammad, who appointed him? إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَعَثَ مُحَمَّدًا. Allah appointed Muhammad. But when it comes to himself, you would expect that Imam al-Hasan would say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَعَثَنِي. But no. وَلَّانِيَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ الْأَمْرَ بَعْدَهُ. The Muslims appointed me to their affair after him. Now, for those of you who don't have access to Arabic encyclopedias, I can refer you to works in English that are quite popular. The book entitled The Succession to Muhammad, a study of the early caliphate by Professor Wilfred Madelung, who was the Laudian professor of Arabic at the University of Oxford. And this is one of his most critically acclaimed and celebrated works. Obviously, sometimes his analysis is a bit off in some places, but overall, this is a book that we recommend, not because all the analysis is such that we agree with it. He's an Orientalist at the end of the day. But these books are still precious because they present to you in easy to read English stuff that's locked away in Arabic. All that I presented to you has actually been summarized by this professor in this book. So on page 312, here he describes the Shura that elected Imam al-Hasan. They gave bay'ah to him because they felt, the Muslims felt, that he was best entitled and he was the dearest to them. And indeed, with the heart of a sincere believer, no one can be more beloved after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Fatima salamullahi alaiha and Imam Ali alayhi salam. No one can be more beloved to you and superior in your sight than his grandsons al-Hasan wal-Husayn alayhim as-salam. The grandson, the Sibtu Rasulillah, the one for whom Rasulullah said al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyida shababi ahli al-Jannah, that they are the masters of the youth of paradise. And he gives you the reference, footnote number 3. And then here on page 313, he goes on to mention a letter from Abdullah bin al-Abbas which arrived from Basra. And then on page 314, the letter that al-Hasan wrote to the Umayyad, to Muawiya, Muhammad, he wrote, had been sent by God as a sign of mercy to all the world. But when it comes to his own appointment, the Muslims had appointed him to succeed. Who appointed him to succeed? The Muslims. Okay, and these are the sources. Ibn al-Hadid has mentioned this in his Sharh, in his commentary. And Ibn A'tham al-Kufi has also mentioned it in his Futuh. So yeah, we do not base our narrative on any single report. Rather, we see that multiple reports come together to force this conclusion on us. Something big like this cannot be hidden. For example, if one of the presidents were to come to power, hypothetically speaking, by military force, something big like this, you can't hide it from history. So this is why the final argument that I will present here in support of the narrative that we believe to be the most plausible is the fact that if you look at the history of Islam, who do they blame for the erosion and the abrogation of the Shura system? You'll notice that Abu Bakr is not blamed, Umar is not blamed, Uthman is not blamed, Imam Ali alayhi salam is not blamed, Imam Hassan alayhi salam is not blamed. If Imam Hassan alayhi salam had come to power by force, without any regard for the will of the Muslim, the blame for abolishing the Shura system would fall squarely on Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, na'udhu billah. If you go to the books of history, who do they blame? And when they list the rap sheet and the major crimes of Muawiya bin Abi Sufyan, one of those major crimes they mention is the fact that he destroyed the Shura system, he disregarded the Shura system, and he forcefully imposed Yazid as the next caliph without properly engaging Muslims in a free and fair Shura. Now you can say, for example, that the very first Shura that was held after the Prophet, it was not an ideal Shura because it was held in Saqifa Bani Sa'ida. It was hastily held. Most of the Muhajirin were not able to attend it. The Banu Hashim, who are the family and clan of the Prophet, were not included in it. So you can point to all sorts of defects. And indeed, Imam Ali pointed out these flaws. And obviously, the primary blame goes to the Ansar. They are the ones who started the meeting. And indeed, we would consider that Shura to actually be illegitimate if Imam Ali alayhi salam had not forgiven the matter, if he had not made peace and validated the decision of that Shura by finally giving bay'ah to Abu Bakr after 6 months. If Imam Ali alayhi salam had not done that, then until the Day of Judgment, there would be grounds for saying, you know what, that first government was not a properly elected government. But because Imam Ali alayhi salam reconciled with the first caliph, and after making him admit the way they did things after the Prophet was not right, after making them admit this, Imam Ali said, okay, let bygones be bygones. I'm giving you bay'ah now, and I am no longer your opposition.